Vice President Kamala Harris was on Meet the Press this weekend attacking the Supreme Court for overturning its 1973 decision in Roe v. Wade.
The United States Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision just took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the women of America, from the people of America. Well, how does that relate to the midterms?
How does that relate to the midterms and to the next Congress? Now, this is a right that the court created, but now it's a problem when they realize they made a mistake. We'll talk about it with North Carolina Congressman Dan Bishop a little later here on Washington Watch. Increasingly, we see the president, his administration, and the left in general throwing around loaded terms, which are clearly designed to be like verbal grenades: Christian, nationalist, MAGA, Republicans, and even fascist. But can they define those terms?
What is a semi-fascist?
Listen, I think that let's not get caught up in politicizing the fact that most people in America know that it is not helpful to our country when we have people who are denying elections or trying to obstruct the outcome of an election where the largest number of people in our country voted for the President of the United States.
That was Meet the Press's Chuck Todd asking the vice president to define the terms that they're using. As you notice, she didn't do it. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. On Thursday of last week, the mayor of D.C., Muriel Bowser, was complaining that the District of Columbia has become a border city with the influx of illegal immigrants.
Today, I'm providing a situational update on the ongoing humanitarian crisis that's taking place in our city as a result of the actions of the governors of Texas and Arizona.
Now, wait a minute. That can't be true. There cannot be a crisis because the vice president said the border is secure.
We have a secure border in that is a priority for any nation, including ours and our administration.
Something doesn't add up, and we're going to talk about it. And in another blatant example of the left gaslighting America, the number of voters who voted in this year's primary elections reveal that the election reform measures that the left claimed were designed to suppress voter turnout actually increased over 2018. Could it be that confidence in the election process actually encourages people to vote? Well, we're going to talk about that with Jason Sneed, Executive Director of Honest Elections, a little later here on Washington Watch. The website, TonyPerkins.com, lots of resources there for you, as well as contact information for our guest. The word for today comes from Proverbs chapter 25, it's verse 11, and it reads as follows: a word spoken at the right time is like gold apples in silver settings. You see, our words can be of great value, creating a picture of great worth. But just as an artist or a craftsman is intentional in their design, so too must we be intentional with our words. Like the complementary setting of silver, do our words match the occasion? Do our words add to and build up, or are they extraneous? And even worse than that, do they devalue or diminish the values of others? Our words, which we have complete control over, are powerful. Our words can build up and they can create worth, or they can tear down and destroy. James writes about this in the New Testament. He says, if anyone among you thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless. So let's give careful thought and consideration to the timing and the content of what we say. All right, yesterday, on the 21st anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, in which almost 3,000 Americans were killed, the vice president appeared on Meet the Press. And quite frankly, it was kind of stunning what she had to say. She claimed that January 6th was very similar to 9/11. She claimed that our chaotic southern border is secure, made clear that if the Democrats can pick up 2 seats in the Senate in the midterm election, the filibuster will be gone for select issues like abortion and the federal takeover of elections. With me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Dan Bishop, who is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and a member of the Homeland Security Committee. He represents the 9th Congressional District of North Carolina. Congressman Bishop, welcome back to the program.
Tony, I'm happy to be with you today.
It's always good to see you. Now, I know I've been very clear about denouncing the violence of January 6th, but to say that the threat that is within us is comparable to September the 11th, when almost 3,000 Americans were murdered. I mean, people jumping from buildings to avoid burning to death. To compare the two, especially by the Vice President of the United States on the anniversary of this attack, is frankly stunning. Your reaction?
Well, Tony, let me address both parts of your comment. That when she says that that there are people who in the Republican Party, high officials who've never condemned the violence of January 6th, that's simply a lie. That's so she has this habit of sort of doing what you did in 9th grade when you hadn't prepared for your homework. On the one hand, you just keep talking, and on the other hand, you gaslight, and that's what she's doing. She's gaslighting, and as you then say, if that weren't bad enough to tell a flat lie, she then goes out and makes an equivalence to 9/11 that is just astonishing. And what a gross insult to those first responders who gave their lives on that horrible day, and the insult to half of the country to essentially equate them with the terrorists who attacked and tore down the World Trade Center and attacked the Pentagon. It's just simply astonishing. Is this the person that the Democrats are going to run in 2024?
Well, I like your term gaslighting. It's a term that's been used a lot, and it is what is happening. It's them claiming we're doing exactly what they're doing. I want to go back and I want to play a clip from the summer of 2020 when cities were smoldering, still burning, government facilities like courthouses under siege in Portland. And this is what the vice president had to say. She wasn't vice president at the time, but was asked about this violence. Play clip number 12.
I always am going to interpret these protests as an essential component of evolution in our country, as an essential component or mark of a real democracy.
Double standard? Can we say double standard?
She always adopts this tone of great gravity and seriousness, and then says the most absurd things. As you say, there is no standard which, and unfortunately, Chuck Todd plays into this by asking about whether we face, asserting in his question that we face a threat from within, adopting the theme of President Biden from his Red speech. But it never occurs to them to test their own actions or the actions of their own side by the criticisms they're making of Republicans and of the other half of the country. It is no way to build unity. And what they apparently mean when they fret about our democracy is they fret about democratic power, and that's all they're concerned about.
I want to go to the issue of abortion, the Supreme Court, the Dobbs decision. I want to play clip number 6 and get your reaction to this.
The United States Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision just took a constitutional right that had been recognized from the women of America, from the people of America. Well, how does that relate to the midterms? Our president has said he will not let the filibuster get in the way. If the Senate, through a majority vote, votes to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, he will sign it into law. You know what that means? In the midterms, we need to hold on to the Senate and get 2 more. And then we can put into law the protections of Roe v. Wade. Everything is on the line when you think about the millions of women and people in America who care about them, who understand the significance of protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
All right, there's so much in that statement. First off, what the court created, the court took away. I mean, the court created, there was no constitution, right? The court created this, and 49 years later realized there was no foundation for that right that was created. She doesn't say anything about that. But she also underscores, Dan, the importance of this midterm election. Speak to that.
She characterizes this Supreme Court as activist. That was how she began the comments immediately before that clip.
Right, right.
An activist court is one that creates a right or a restriction on government out of whole cloth, out of no language in the Constitution. And the court very seriously undertook that analysis and did the right thing. She just attacks it because it's not what she desires to be the political result. And she immediately goes, these are the Democrats. This is Kamala Harris, who is talking about the Republicans being dangerously extreme. But her immediate path is, unless abortion is permitted until the moment of birth, they're prepared to end the filibuster in the Senate, which has been in place for the country's entire existence. And of course, the attacks on the Supreme Court have been forthcoming from Democrats, including Kamala Harris, and they say that should turn the election. They want to turn the Supreme Court into a partisan playground. And they've talked about expanding the court. That, of course, is proposals from Jerry Nadler and others in the Congress who are Democrats. They accuse Republicans of what they are doing.
So the current concern for them, Congressman Bishop, is that the court is no longer advancing the policies that they want. So now they're against a court that is tied to the Constitution, and that's what they're upset about.
It is always, they've gotten accustomed to the Warren Court judicial activism. They could put liberals on the court to give them liberal policy when they cannot elect sufficient numbers of liberals to the Congress to make that policy. If we can't have any agreement on anything, we ought to be able to agree the fact that a court is to apply law. The court is not to make law. But again, that's not where they are. And they are terribly upset that they've lost the ability to manipulate justice in that way and to substitute justice for electoral politics. But, I think she's not their greatest salesman. If she's got to be they say when you're explaining, you're losing. Well, when Kamala is making the explanations, it's an absolute disaster.
Well, why do you think we're playing clips of her? That's exactly why. And there's more on the other side of this break. Dan Bishop's going to stay with us, and we're going to talk about what limits might the Biden administration put on abortion. Is there a limit? Is it at the point of pain? Is it the day before birth? Is it the day after birth? Will they draw a line at which they will accept restrictions on the taking of the life of the unborn? We're going to talk about that. Continue my conversation with Congressman Dan Bishop of North Carolina. He serves on the House Judiciary Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. He is the congressman for the 9th Congressional District of North Carolina. All right, Dan, I want to turn to a question that Todd asked the vice president regarding something that's, I think very relevant. We, abortion, now the Democrats running with that in the wake of the Dobbs decision. And quite frankly, I think too many Republicans are on the defensive. I think we need to be very clear. I mean, my position has always been, I believe in the sanctity of life from the moment of conception on, and I'm going to work for policy that will get us closer to that. Whether that's at the point of an unborn child feeling pain, whether it's when the heartbeat starts, whatever that is, I'm going to move toward that. And so some of our Republican candidates are on the defensive, but I think we need to ask the question that Todd asked Kamala Harris. Let's play clip number 9.
Do you believe the government should put any limit on abortion?
I believe government should not be telling women what to do with their bodies. I believe government should not be telling women how to plan their families. I believe government should not be criminalizing healthcare providers. I believe government should not be saying no exception for rape or incest. As a prosecutor, former prosecutor who specialized in child sexual assault cases, understanding the violence that occurs against women and children, and then to further subject them to those kind of inhumane conditions. That's what I believe.
So, Congressman Dan Bishop, did she answer the question?
What she answered is that she cannot think of any limitation, any basis for compromise, any concession whatsoever. Abortion, at least until birth. That's her position, and she says again, she's it's the extremists on the other side. You articulated, as you said, and I agree that life begins at conception, and I believe that life should be protected from conception. But I also have always said that I would make compromises to the point that we could form a policy that would be more humane, some of the ones that you suggested. So we've articulated that, Tony. Why is it that Democrats never have any concession to offer and believe that we should have a more extreme abortion policy even than Roe laid out? So I just don't think she's making a good point.
And that's a good point that you just made there, because I want to underscore that when she made reference earlier to the Women's Health Act, I think I may have misnamed it. That's never can. Their names are always deceptive, but their abortion bill that they say would codify Roe, it goes further than Roe, doesn't it?
That's right. It certainly does. And Tony, people are talking about bipartisanship. She despaired the lack of bipartisanship. Well, I watched in the House, 218 Democrats co-sponsored that. Only a couple of them failed to vote in favor of it. Maybe one. So there's and that again, it goes farther than Roe. It goes until it says the law it would allow no restriction whatsoever on an abortion so long as the pregnancy is ongoing. If the baby is inches inside the birth canal, you can still abort according to them. No restriction. That's the picture of extreme, the epitome of extreme.
And this would erase the state advances that have been made over the last 4 decades to protect the sanctity of human life, including laws such as parental notification, the ultrasound laws that are in place. So this is an extreme piece of legislation that they are pushing, that she was very clear in an earlier clip that I played, that if they can gain 2 seats in the Senate, they will eliminate the filibuster in order for Joe Biden to sign this into law. That's what we're talking about, in part, being at stake in this midterm election.
One extreme feeding the other. That's right. They pile them on top of each other. There's nothing that they seem to be unwilling to do. And then she criticizes as extreme. She characterizes Republicans who in various states passed laws to make it easier even to vote than it was before and merely require clear identification of the voter as being horrific, extreme anti-voter legislation. And that's the other exception she would make, she says, to the filibuster, she and Joe Biden, is they would pass law that would revolutionize our elections and center all the power in Washington and ban voter ID. Those are the moderate, reasonable Democrats.
I don't want to play the clip again because we don't have much time, but I played it earlier where she said the southern border is secure. There's no problem at the border. But if I'm listening to the mayor of D.C., she says she's got a humanitarian crisis because there's a few buses coming in from Texas and Arizona dropping off the illegal immigrants that are coming across the border. So what is it? Do we have a crisis or not?
What a great juxtaposition of those two clips. Yes, we have a crisis because President Biden has destroyed the enforcement of American immigration law. What does she think? And she says the whole problem is that Republicans are playing politics, playing political gamesmanship, and that the problem is we haven't said there's a path to citizenship for all 4 million who've come in under Biden's watch, who are now flooding D.C. Well, it's not even a flood. You want to see the flood, go down to Texas. But a relative handful in New York and D.C., those officials there recognize puts enormous strain on resources and causes problems. It is a crisis. It is one of the Biden administration's making. Donald Trump had solved border security largely. Yeah. We could be continuing that. Instead, we've gone another path.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Congressman Dan Bishop, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on this Monday afternoon.
Thank you, Tony.